Ever? Yes, of course. I think everybody does. So, yeah, there's not much I can give you there.
Welcome to 32 Thoughts, the podcast presented by the GMC Sierra AT4X. Tom Shermati, Elliot Friedman, Kyle Bukauskas with you again. Elliot, around this time of year, there's always that feeling after covering 4 rounds of the playoffs. The fatigue is right there, and the thought of, I'm so tired, I don't understand how the players played and went through all of that over the last 2 months. I didn't have a shift, and I'm wiped. How was the first day back for you after the grind of 4 rounds?
Not too bad, Kyle. I slept a lot more than I normally do. I will say that. But as I often tell people, what I'm doing is not rocket surgery, so it's not that hard.
Yes, that's right. The boyfriend had gathered his things. They got out by the time he got home.
He's gone. He's gone.
Good.
No trace of him. No socks left behind.
Yeah. Like
Desperate Housewives, where they find a sock under the bed.
Right. Oh, good.
And the cleaning lady has to clean with socks because that's the excuse.
That's crazy. I saw that clip online somewhere today.
Did you really?
I was never a Desperate Housewives guy, but that just popped up out of nowhere. So
I didn't. I remember watching an episode once, and that was the episode where the cleaning lady has to clean with socks because they found one under, I think it was Eva Longoria's bed from the guy she was having an affair with. It was pretty funny. Great scene.
Any other day in my life prior to this one, I would not have known what you're talking about, but today of all days.
The sun's aligned. The stars aligned.
That's good. All right, so back in Edmonton, Elliot, everyone's still coming to grips with what happened in the 6-game defeat to the Florida Panthers and a second straight trip to the Stanley Cup final without a Stanley Cup to lift over their heads. On Thursday, they had their end-of-season availabilities back in Edmonton, and naturally, the majority of the attention went to what was Connor McDavid's thoughts about the series and his future. If you haven't heard, he is eligible to sign an extension just a few days from now, on July the 1st. Among the things that he said, well, actually, you know what? Why don't we let you hear what he said earlier on Thursday?
Winning would be at the top of the list, and then winning would be it's the most important thing. If I feel that there's a good window to win here over and over again, then signing is no problem.
So, Kyle, do you want to hear my theory?
Always.
I don't think Connor McDavid is eager to flee northern Alberta. I don't think he's really interested in doing that. I think he's got a good setup there, him and Draisaitl. You need depth, but you also need superstar talent, and you can't do better than Draisaitl and McDavid to start, right? They like each other. He's got good relationships with a lot of players on that team. And he also sees that they have been to the Stanley Cup final 2 years in a row, and they've lost to an absolute buzzsaw. And so I think he recognizes all of that. I think also, too, he recognizes that before they ran into this multi-year juggernaut from South Florida, they lost the first 2 games of the playoffs to the Kings, and then they went 12-2. And they just didn't beat the Kings, Vegas, and Dallas. They dominated them. Remember what we felt about the Oilers when they beat Vegas? We were like, holy smokes.
Yeah,
nobody beats Vegas like that. Remember what we felt about the Oilers when they beat Dallas? We were like, holy smokes. Nobody beats Dallas like that, to the point where Dallas imploded internally and they had to make a coaching change that they weren't expecting to make. So I understand McDavid's frustration. Like the thing that stood out to me still about this final, Kyle, is not what McDavid said at all on Thursday. It's what he said after Game 6. That line about trying the same thing over and over again, just banging our heads against the wall. Like to me, that's still as interesting as anything he said on Thursday. Because what it says to me is this is not only a roster thing that McDavid is talking about, but it's also maybe a philosophy in terms of the way they play, or the way they adjust, or the way they put things together. Like, if you look at Edmonton, one of the things they did best in the first 3 rounds was move the puck out of their zone. Statistically, they did that as well as anybody. And then they ran into Florida and they couldn't do it anymore. And, you know, you talked about the Alfredson comments last pod after Game 6. I think that's part of what he's talking about. I think what he's saying is, I'm all in every year, and everybody knows that. I need to make sure that everybody here is all in every year. And I think they are. I have no doubt they are. But I think this is his way of saying, I expect the Oilers to be wired the exact same way I am. And you look at it, they gave Skinner another shot. I don't know if they're going to bring in another goalie to go with Skinner or they're going to move on. But one thing I do believe is that they have to end the uncertainty. Like, teams that win the Stanley Cup, you don't have as much turnover or upheaval in net the way Edmonton's had the last 2 years. And I could see McDavid and the organization saying, enough of that. We have to end that one way or the other. Whatever you do, this ends now. So that's number one. Number two, he talked about Bouchard, and he wants to see Bouchard get signed. And I'll say this, one thing Edmonton's very lucky about is the cap is going up now. It's not stagnant anymore, and it gives them a better chance. Look, they've got Draisaitl at 14. McDavid's going to sign for some huge number, which he deserves every penny of. Remember last time, McDavid didn't sign for as much as he could sign for, so I don't expect it to be any different. Like, the maximum he can sign for, I think, is like $19 million. I don't expect him to sign for $19 million. Now, do I still think it'll be a big number? Absolutely. And again, no one's complaining about it. But if history is any indication, he's not going for the max. Bouchard, I could see him being an 8-figure guy easy. And we'll see, what happens around him with Kane, Arvidsson. Connor Brown is a guy who might be looking for some term now. He's taken a couple 1-year deals. He's been a good fit. They have a bunch of defensemen, Kulak, Ekholm, Yes,
that
they
bar
did.
was jammed right
A
away.
lot of that stuff was really good, like Barkov, the ring, doing the doorbell.
Yes, at 5 a.m.
And the guy saying last year he didn't bring it by, this time bring it by. So Barkov comes at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something else too, Kyle. I forgot to mention this last pod, but just talking to a couple of the Panthers on and off the ice after that game, they're not going to let up. They're going for 3.
It's amazing.
Like that organization, they're like, okay, we won 2. It's hard to win 2. Other teams have won 2. No one's won 3 in a row since the Islanders, right?
Yeah, like not even the Oilers in the 80s did 3.
That's 40 years ago.
Well, we talked about it early in the playoffs, Elliot, like just with how that team prioritizes rest and recovery and just the group that they have there already. I know they've got some big decisions to make and trying to bring some guys back. That's the road they want to go. But I heard you on the radio, I can't remember where it was, made the interesting point where, you look at a guy like Seth Jones and how many other players in the league were looking at him going, well, I could be that guy. I could be the player that maybe my situation isn't the best where I am right now, but I could be part of a solution in a place like Florida for when they go to find the next version of Seth Jones or a Brad Marchand or somebody of that ilk next year when they try to do it a third time.
So, Kyle, Bill Zito, after they won the Cup, he says, I'm going to try to keep everybody, right? And sometimes I think that's the emotion of the moment. What are you going to say? You've just won the Stanley Cup. All these players have gone through a wall for you. Well, we're going to get rid of 2 of them. Like, it's a tough thing to say. So I could totally understand. I have no doubt they're going to try. And like we talked about with Edmonton, the cap's going up. It's not like all these teams had to deal with 4 and 5 years ago, even 2 years ago, where the cap was flat. So it's an advantage at this time for the Oilers and the Panthers as compared to other teams who competed for the Stanley Cup in recent years. I would not underestimate the Panthers, but I gotta think 2 out of 3 potentially is more likely. Bennett, I've talked before, 8 times 7 for Hagee was the offer. And I think Bennett is going to bend. He's going to take less money than he can get on the open market to stay with the Panthers. I think this is one where the Panthers have to bend a bit, and I expect they are going to bend a little bit. I'm going to go with this is going to get done until somebody convinces me it's actually not going to get done. Remember last year, Reinhart got signed right before midnight on June 30th. So I guess it could always come down to the wire. Marchand, it's such a tough one because I said at the beginning of the Cup final he was getting a 3 times 8, and now I've had people telling me you're going to be off on this one. He's going to get more, and maybe the magic number, like that's $24 million. Maybe he gets more than that in another structure, or maybe he gets more than 3 times 8 AV. But he did nothing in the Stanley Cup final to hurt his worth. And I think Utah's in there. I think Toronto is going to be in there. And I think there's going to be other teams there as well. And it's going to be very interesting to see where Florida, an analytically heavy team, feels that it can go here. So I think that's going to be fascinating. Ekblad, Kyle, I don't know how much they've really negotiated with him. I think they did last year around the draft free agency. It was not anything that Ekblad was willing to do. I have to think that as important to him as anything is term. He's 29 years old, and his body's been through a heck of a lot. So I've heard that term is going to be a big one for him. And this is a big opportunity for him, too, because he played the best hockey of his life. And I think there's going to be a lot of interest in him. And, the other name we shouldn't forget, Nate Schmidt. Nate Schmidt had a great year and a great playoff and a great final. I think them keeping him depends on what happens around him. But I'm sure they'd love to keep him. And if they don't, I can see a lot of teams running at him as a player.
Right. Well, I think it's 2 years in a row now, right? They brought in a defenseman coming off being bought out and have helped kind of rebuild them, right? It was Ekman Larsson 2 years ago, and he ends up signing for a good chunk of time in Toronto, and then they bring in Nate Schmidt. Great success. I mean, again, it speaks to the program they've got there in Florida, also to the work of Sylvain Lefebvre, who runs the defense there with the Panthers, along with Paul Maurice as the head coach. Nate Schmidt's
I'm glad you mentioned that, because Maurice gets a lot of the credit. He deserves it. He's the head coach, but their assistant coaches, like Sylvain Lefebvre, remember when he got traded there, we talked about how, Seth Jones would benefit from him. He did. Rob Tallis, very patient over the years in dealing with Sergei Bobrovsky. He's done a great job earning, he's the guy who convinced Bobrovsky that in the regular season, you can play a bit less. And it's made Bobrovsky a better goalie. And I think we should also recognize a person who someone joked was Paul Maurice's brain. That's Jamie Compon. A 4-time Stanley Cup champion.
Yeah, really good.
Kings in 12, Blackhawks in 13, and now 2 in a row with the Panthers. And like Jamie Compon, man, he played when he was a player, and this was in the 90s. He played in the ECHL. He looks like he could still play. He is ripped.
Yes, on the ice, he's like there's something with the routines in the morning where like he'll be on the ice helping to skate, and then he'll come off, and next thing you know, the room will open to the media, and he's sitting with a player at their stall. He's got the laptop out, looking at video, and you're like, okay, now he's finished on the ice. He's doing video stuff with players, and then you go leave the dressing room again, and he's back out on the ice, like working with the scratches. He doesn't stop. It's really impressive.
He makes you look like the Blob.
Yeah. So what does that make you?
Triple Blob.
Oh boy. We talk about this Evander Kane LTIR situation. Yes. The league seems to be circling back to. What's going on here? So Kane, just to bring everyone up to speed, for those that don't remember, like last September, he had a pretty